Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today for Stressed to Blessed. If you happen to have watched the video about food, good and bad, you will notice that I addressed the whole concept of stress, making life changes before you have dealt with stress. And so I appreciate all the feedback. It was great to hear from people and find out that you really wanted me to delve into the whole stress factor a little bit more. So that's what we're going to do today. And the good news is what is amazing about this is we think dealing with stress is very overwhelming, but it's actually a lot simpler than we think. We just have to start with the basic foundations and then build from there. So I'm going to explain to you how I came to this process. And to be full-fledged revealing today, I'm a self-confessed stress addict. I operated on it for decades, thought that it almost served me, felt that it was just a normal condition, and in some cases felt that I had it under control. So if any of you can sympathize with that, then you're in the right place, because it was a bit of a journey for me to go from that point to where I am now, and I can promise you that it's worth it. The basic concept I got to when trying to learn to manage my stress, and it was a bit of health issue that was for a while blamed on stress, and although required medical intervention at the point, I felt that I never really recovered until I dealt with the stress factor. And the piece of information I want to share with people now, that even if it's a condition that obviously needs medical treatment or is, an illness or disease, the fact of the matter is all of that will work much more effectively if you deal with the stress. You have to think of it as your medicine won't work properly if you're under stress. And I really started to see all these concepts because obviously I studied animal behavior before I got into health and fitness, and looking at, humans and our natural environment. And it's interesting to note that what I was seeing was animals dealing with stress very different in the real natural world. And, one can argue that, well, they don't have stress, but that's not the truth, because animals actually, their stress is like high level when they're having to deal with something. It's a matter of life or death situation. And hence the term that's used is the fight or flight response. And for animals, it's very applicable, obviously, that when they're in danger, they have to take off. They're, either in fear or have to take off to make sure that they survive that situation. And so stress is actually the very same for us, but because we deal with many different levels and dimensions of stress, obviously our responses aren't always as extreme as just taking off running, but physiologically the body has the same responses going on. So one of the key points you have to think about is every time you're stressed, and we're going to kind of look into what stressed actually is, because a lot of people will say to me, well, I'm not stressed. But the key is that we are so chronically stressed that we don't even realize that we're in stress mode in our body anymore. So it's not like we have these acute stress situations where, we have to take off because we aren't going to survive. But we just have all these chronic low-level stress situations that eventually we don't even realize our body is operating in stress mode. But what's happening when it does is things like our digestion doesn't work effectively, our immune system is halted, even our blood flow isn't effective. So oxygen is not getting to all parts of our body. You may feel like you just have trouble breathing or you're lacking energy, and it's so low grade that you don't associate it with an actual stress situation. But what has happened is we've just chronically all the time, a little bit over time, been in this situation. And the key we're missing, and this is very important, and the point we're going to work to today, is that we never get to the point where we regenerate our body from that stress situation. So I want you to use the nature example that I often refer to, and it's a deer in the field eating grass. Now, it hears a sound. It potentially is in a dangerous situation. It stops, it's alerted, and then when it fears that there actually is a danger situation, it takes off. But what I always found intriguing when you watch wild animals respond to stress situations is they don't keep running for 10 kilometers. They don't keep going and running way out of their normal habitat or take off, which we sort of assume is the way to deal with these things, right? Keep going and going and going until that stress can't catch up with you. What's intriguing when you watch animals in the wild is they take off, but they almost stop at the first opportunity that stress is no longer affecting them. And you will see a deer in minutes go back to eating grass as if nothing ever happened. And I find that really interesting because that's the piece we're missing, is that regeneration mode. So after we go through a stressful situation, say you got a phone call and it was bad news, or you're in a meeting that didn't go very well, or you find out that maybe work or jobs are in jeopardy, it's a high stress situation. For that moment, it's high stress. You can feel the stress. You might even recognize that it is a strong, valid stress and how it makes you feel. But what we don't do, and we've lost the instinct to do, is take the opportunity to go, whoa, that was bad. That was intense. That was a lot on me. Now what can I do to get back to recovery, to get my body back in normal mode, to tell it that it's safe, to tell it that, blood can flow freely all through it, and you can start boosting your immune system again and get your organs operating again, because all of those halted in the high stress situation. Because in a high stress situation, you don't need the normal functioning. So all of your function goes to the vital systems to do what it has to do. So blood only goes to the vital organs. It's not going to your extremities, not to all your muscles. Sometimes the oxygen isn't flowing to your brain as much as it would normally. And so that's the reason being is, though, that's supposed to be your temporary mode. It's your temporary condition to best help you through that stressful, scary situation, but then it needs to resume. But we never stop to tell our body that it needs to resume. So we never get that regeneration. And then another little stressful situation, your drive home from work, or rushing the kids to an event, or having to hurry up and get supper ready in time for something, or you forget something at work and it bothers you all evening that you needed to do it. There's so many little things that happen in our day to keep us in that heightened situation, and it happens every day, all day long. So we don't think that it's actually a stress that's affecting us, but it's constantly working at us. So we need to do things to undo that. Now, I always have people say to me, well, I don't think I'm really stressed, because we think it's, a horrible car accident type situation. That's stress. You recover, you regenerate, but that's not true. Literally, if you wake up in the morning and you're in any sense of a hurry, if you spend your day thinking about all the things you have to get done in a day, if you spend your time at work thinking about what all you need to do when you get home, or vice versa, when you're sit at the end of the day, if you've ever had the day that your biggest relief is when, you did everything off your checklist, or you sit at the end of the day and just go, wow, what a day. I did it all. Maybe it feels good. I did most of it. Or the even worse situation is you sit at the end of the day and feel defeated because you didn't get it all. Those are all chronic, low-grade stress situations that are not letting your body operate optimally, and we need to make special efforts to go back to fix those. Now, people do things to help with our stress. There's no doubt about it, and there's some really good opportunities and things that we can do to help ourselves, like going for a massage once a month or every couple of weeks. People like to exercise. People like to go for a walk. These are all good things, but what's happening is we're not taking the opportunity to get our body back in neutral mode enough times during the day that those help our body regenerate. So think of it this way. If you're in how many low-grade chronic stress situations all day long every day, and you go for a massage once a month, how can it possibly have trained your body how to recover after each stress? So the massage is good. It's very helpful. It gives your whole body a sense of relaxation and actually helps it regenerate, improves your blood flow. All of those are very healthy for your body, but you have not trained your body consistently enough to get out of the stress mode each time it happens, and how to regenerate in the moment when it's happening or shortly after it's happening, so that your body can get back into resume mode. So you're asking that massage or that one effort to make up for a lot of scenarios throughout a day. And it's just not enough to not only recover from what it's gone through, but it's not enough to develop a habit of your body getting back to neutral after every time it encounters a stress. So the one big thing that we tend to do to add to this while we're trying to help with our stress is we want a quick change. And so, we want to say go for a massage, or, go for a walk and get it over with and it's all good. A lot of times when we're feeling like our body's out of balance and out of whack, we instantly want to change our diet and exercise. And again, it's all good stuff to do, but you have to remember that those changes in itself are causing stress to your body. So you have to make sure that what you're trying to do is a small change. It's consistent. It's many times through the day that counteracts the little stresses, so that your body doesn't feel like that it's way up here and you're trying to bring it way down here all of a sudden. What you're trying to do is every time it just goes up a little bit, you bring it back down. Up a little bit, bring it back down. So that when you have the high ones, your body automatically and naturally will slowly want to bring it back down, because that's what it does after you are encountering certain stress situations. So really what you're trying to do is, and again, think of this as the deer in nature. You're really trying to look for what they want to do. And sometimes people mistake this advice as you're trying to ignore the stress, and that's not it at all. Because I always think, the deer takes the time to stop and observe. It perks up its ears, and it's always sort of assessing, is this a stressful situation? Then it decides it is, and then it quickly ends, resumes, and allows its body to regenerate. And so sometimes we don't have the instinct to stop and assess the situation ahead of time. Sometimes it triggers something that normally causes stress for us, but we can also do that assessment after. And I always tell people it's okay to be stressed, because sometimes people will say, well, that wasn't very stressful, you shouldn't be so stressed. That's not the case. So you have to realize that regardless of how someone else assesses the situation, or whether someone else will tell you, well, that outside stress isn't really stress, it caused stress in you. So it's good to recognize that and acknowledge it. But what you're really then trying to do is say to yourself, is this how I want to stay feeling? And when you ask that question, nobody wants to stay there. I mean, for a while, sometimes we subconsciously sort of got a little bit addicted to stress, because that adrenaline release that would happen in a stress situation would give us lots of energy. So we go, oh, it got me through, this deadline that I had to achieve, or it got me through this meeting. I was kind of anxious, and it sort of got me all alert and up on top of my game during the meeting. And that's great. But we sometimes then become addicted to that feeling. So we never bring ourselves down, or we resort to that feeling quite regularly to keep us going. But that's an energy resource that we don't have unlimited supplies. They're meant to help us through tough times, stressful situations. And so when you're constantly going there, there's no regeneration. So you have to come back down to let those systems replenish, so that then when you need to, you go back. So you have to think of it like, do I really want to use my really good resources on this smaller situation, or do I want to save them for bigger, more challenging situations? So here's what you can do. And here's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to almost recreate the situation that the wild animals do. Now, unfortunately, we tend to think of activities that help bring our stress down as selfish activities. And so, for a long time, I know many people, I even knew some people that would only exercise really hard because it justified them going for a massage, because otherwise they felt it was selfish. Or taking time to read your book or have a hot bath if you've got young kids that are calling for you in the evening, or you have a lot of work to do, obviously you're not going to take your quiet coffee break and or go outside and get some fresh air. But what you're starting to realize, and I know we all have that analogy that everybody talks about, but I think we actually don't really believe, is the oxygen mask in the plane. You know how you have to regenerate, or you have to protect yourself and make yourself safe so that you can help tons of others. We say it all the time, and literally I don't think any of us actually take it literally and do it. But this is really important that you do, because what you're doing is you're saving yourself in the end. This isn't just about saving yourself to help other people. You're literally saving yourself, because at the end of the day, if you don't deal with this, you're going to get very ill. When you deplete your systems, if you've ever felt like you're burned out, if you've ever felt like you just, you catch the flu or you catch something and you just never recover, or something wears you down, you're just tired endlessly all the time, that's setting you up for failure. That's setting you up for illness and disease, and even worse states of mental conditions that can wear you down even more. So you want to fix this system now before you aren't even able to put the oxygen mask on for you, let alone the other people around you. So it's really important that we start to practice this regeneration mode, where a little stress happens, I recognize it, I see where it's coming from, and it's really kind of irrelevant whether you think it's a valid or not valid situation. The truth is, you don't want to stay there. Nobody wants to stay there. Your body does not want to stay there. So it wants you to go somewhere else where you can help regenerate so that it can get its system back up and play. Now, I know a lot of us tend to want to go have a nap. And we think that we're doing something really good for ourselves when we do this. And trust me, sleep's very important. I'm not saying that. And sometimes that really is just what you need. But if you're only relying on sleep to create this habit of bringing down your nervous system to a level where everything else starts to operate in neutral mode as if there's no issues, it's not really going to do what you want it to do for two reasons. First is, sleep actually has another purpose. It's trying to regenerate all of the rest of your body from the wear and tear from the day. So its job is not to teach you how to get back to neutral after stress. It's actually there to regenerate your organs, to catch up with your digestion, to, kind of get tissues rebuilt and your body detox. So it has a whole other job, so you can't just rely on getting good sleep to help your stress. The only way to really get this under control is during the day when you're awake, when these little stresses chronically happen. You're trying to get your body into a habit of, nervous system, set into stress mode. We're going to make some efforts to now send signals to your body to tell it that it's safe so that it can resume normal activities. And there's really very important points here that you want to recognize are happening. And I'm also going to introduce kind of a bit of a new concept. I think we've used some of the terms before, but it's really a way that's not often used to look at what's going on with your system. But when you think of your nervous system as triggered in a stress situation, it sends signals to your body all through your body. That's why some of these systems halt. That's why some of these systems are heightened. But you have to realize that those signals going through your body are energy, right? It's science. If there's signals running through your body, there are vibrations and frequency that are running through your body that send out all the little systems in play. Sometimes we think of it as signals that certain parts of our body get to tell us to do these things. One of the key ones we always talk about is serotonin and oxytocin release, and how those, kind of increase your reaction or your heightened reaction to some of these situations. That comes from your nervous system. Those increased hormones are signaled from your nervous system. But you've also heard people say about your vibe, this has a good vibe, this has a positive vibe or a negative vibe. And really, that's what's going on. The signals running through your body are giving the vibe. As much as that sounds like a kind of crazy term, it's science. So all energy has a vibration and frequency. So the vibe or the vibration you're feeling through your body is actually what's telling it what to do. So you have the ability to influence the vibe in your body to tell it whether to stay stressed or not to. So, where am I going with this? You're probably wondering. I'm actually telling you all of this because the solutions are going to seem so simple that you're going to go, what? And it starts as simple as this. You have to write a list of things that give you a good vibe. And what I mean by that is to try and talk or think our way out of a stressful situation is close to impossible. When people say to you, oh, you got to think more positively. And so you try and then you just go back to kind of your negative, more depressing type, frustrating type thoughts. That's because it's really hard to change a thought process, but it's easier to change the vibration or the vibe that your body is feeling. And that vibe can tell your body you're not in stress anymore. So when you make this list, there's a few factors you have to put into play here. You want the list to be as sort of basic, can be used in any moment, any time, without any resources. And, you're going to have different suggestions. So I'm going to use an example. A lot of people find being outside in fresh air or nature or hanging out with an animal that they love gives them a good vibe. And that's valid because actually in further videos, I'm going to get into the vibration and frequency that are emitted from nature and animals. But it's also something that you know as fairly safe. You've already associated a relaxation sense with it. That animal is comforting. It has a relaxed feeling to it itself. So it's as simple as, and I'm going to explain to you why you need to make a list. But for right now, let's assume you believe me that you should make a list. So you could simply have, go pet my dog. And as silly as that sounds, when we're in stress mode, we can't think through clearly enough to take ourselves out of that situation and what else to do to get that vibration or vibe that we're looking for. Because our brain isn't meant to problem solve during stress situations. It's not meant to be creative and solve all these new situations. It's meant to deal with the situation, get through it, and think of the one thing you can do to survive it. So you don't want to kind of be relying on your brain in these situations. You want to rely on what you know. But until you get there, that you're doing some of these good vibe things a little more naturally, you need to make a list. So you put pet your dog, pet your cat, whatever it is, step outside, breathe some fresh air. Unfortunately, these aren't always available, right? And, so some people say go for a run. Great solution for stress. Here's the thing. Do you have the time? And sometimes do you have the energy? It doesn't always work or apply to every situation because what you're trying to do is have things that bring you down, say every 10 minutes, depending on your day. If you have days that can be like that, maybe it's every hour. You need stuff that you can be doing consistently at a moment's notice to bring you out of that stress mode into a relaxing, regenerating, good vibe. So one of the most common I almost tell people to refer to it as your backup plan. Give yourself your backup plan that in all scenarios you can do it. And one of the best ones to do that is you recall a memory. And I really suggest that you write the memory down on your list because we literally can be challenged to even recall a good memory when you're in a stressful situation. So think of a few really good memories. Now, if you're a bit of an A personality or you tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist or sort of critical of yourself. Even sometimes people have good memories that they still have a regret or an issue with. Rewrite it. Your nervous system doesn't know reality from what you're telling it. So rewrite those details. Don't dwell on them. You want these memories to be as helpful and valuable as they can. And so you want to write down on your list this memory, fix whatever pieces of it that you may want to change so that it's more powerful of a memory when you memorize it, and relive it. Literally relive it from start to finish, that memory that was so wonderful. And the nice thing about this, say you have a bad meeting at work, just go to the bathroom and relive your memory. Because what's happening now is you're kind of out of your mental brain process, and then everything's engaged. So that's when the vibration and the frequency is running through your body. And you have the ability to send full body signals to your system it's in a good and safe situation. If you try to mentally work through it, you'll find that it's harder. And then you sometimes don't get to the point where you're actually sending those good signals. So telling your story of a good situation when your body was feeling good and working optimally will send the signals for that to go through it right there. And there's so many other things that we can be doing. So as you come across them, and really what you're doing is, as you go through your day and you do something that makes you feel really good, or you come across something, or even a story, write down the story on your list. Even though it's not your story, if it makes you feel good and gives you good vibrations, why wouldn't you want to recall it over and over? So write those good things that happen to you down on your list so that you can relive them or redo them. Maybe it's an action that you can keep doing. You just want to be able to have some that you can do in all situations at all times. So that's why the memory one is really helpful. So what you're trying to do is, as many times throughout the day as you deal with stressful situations, you have as many tools to counteract each of those throughout the day. And then you're going to have some of your favorite things you like to do. So I use this example of sun gazing, but because people like to do it. Now, here's the interesting thing about sun gazing. Obviously, you can do it inside. You want to do it in a safe fashion. You want some exposure to the heat of the sun, but you want to be practical about it. But it's almost like an effort in layering. So say you have more time. So say you only have a few minutes, you go look at the sun through a window. Now, what you have to remember is heat is energy too, right? So that actual heat, you can do this even in a warm room or over a radiator somewhere. You can actually just go relax where there's heat, because that's sending you a safe, warm vibe. It's actually sending energy into your body, which will help with all the signals that you're trying to send, because the signals you're trying to send are energy. Okay, I guess I've hammered that one to death, but the point here being that you're looking for all forms of energy that you can, and good energy that you can from all sources. So the sun is a really valuable one. But then you want to layer it. So you want to sit down in a nice comfy chair, maybe get a really nice cozy warm blanket and a hot cup of tea. Maybe you want to put on some nice relaxing music and light a candle. All those little pieces of things that you love are going to add to the signals that you're sending your body. So you're creating an environment that's all good signals. So every time you add a little layer, so say you only have one moment, you sun gaze. Say you have 2, you pull up a comfy chair. Say you have 10, add the blanket. If you have 20, grab the tea and a candle and all those kind of things that make you feel comfortable. Because here's the really interesting point. When we talk about vibrations through our body, and when people talk about good and bad vibrations, there's actually a more scientific term for it, and it's the higher or lower frequencies of the energy that's running through us. So if you think of good vibrations as higher frequencies and lower frequencies as maybe what we would refer to more like bad vibrations, these also resonate with the feeling we have going through our body. So if you have a feeling of love or gratitude or happiness, they've actually proven that the energy running through your body has a higher frequency. And so when you're feeling, obviously stressed, maybe worrying or feeling guilt or shame, the energy running through your body has a lower frequency. So really what you're trying to do here is to constantly be doing things that help raise your frequency. So even if they don't take all the stress away, even if you raise your frequency just a couple of notches, you've done more for teaching it how to come out of that system than not. And that's why literally 30 seconds of doing any of these things that you can think of that work for you is at least going to raise your frequency a few notches. And the more you do them, the more you raise your frequency. And the more you raise your frequency, the more your body is able to combat the stress and tell your body that it's safe. So as much as it's hard to tell yourself to be happy, to be stress-free, you can actually physically do things that tell your body it is. And it will help tell your mind that it is. But it all has to do with the signals that you're sending through your system, and therefore the energy that's going through your system, and therefore the frequency that your body is feeling when you're experiencing anything. So I guess what I'm really saying at the end of the day is that we train ourselves out of stress mode, but it's less something we can think our way through, which I think we try to do, and I was known for trying to do for many, many years. And as soon as I was able to do things that took me out of that state almost physically. So for a while, I literally went, I'm having really bad anxiety. The stress is too much to handle. I don't know what to do to get me out of this situation. I would go and pet my dog. And as silly as that sounds, it just broke the intensity just a notch. And now I realize what I did is I just increased my frequency just a little bit. That it broke me out of that desperation mode, that all of a sudden you could think your way through it now a little bit. But I would have never been able to do the reverse. And so it makes me think of that deer when it stops in the field and it goes back to eating. And I used to always think it was kind of funny because you'd see this deer that ran from danger and within seconds was back eating grass. And in our society, I think we would perceive that as being selfish. Oh goodness, all it wanted to do was eat. It just went back to eating. But maybe there were so many other factors that it had to consider, that it needed more nourishment, it needed more food. Obviously, in nature, we grasp the concept of calories for survival. Maybe it just needed to replenish its energy stores so that it could take off again if it was in danger. Maybe even, we don't know, that if it went to the next field, it would have been in more danger. Or if it went into the forest, it would have been in more danger. So that actually standing there a few meters away in a field eating grass was very much the optimal thing it should do. The thing we can be sure of with animals is that they're following their instincts. They're not second guessing. And so when an animal runs away from danger, its instinct is telling it, or it's asking it and telling it, what is the next best thing I can do for myself? That's what survival is. What is the next best step I can take to optimize my survival? And for all of us, we don't take the time to ask ourselves that. because you will find that it's not about being selfish. That many times after a tough day, sitting in a warm chair, cuddled up with a nice blanket, staring at the moon for that sake, is the next best step you could take to optimizing your survival. And I can promise you this, if you're not taking steps all day long every day to teach your body how to experience being out of stress mode, what it feels like to increase its vibration constantly, many times through the day, then you are not optimizing your survival. And just remember this, when all else fails and you don't know what to do, the most optimal thing you can do for your body is stop and breathe. Stop doing everything. Stop thinking about anything. Take deep breaths. It's the fastest signal you can give your body that it's safe. It has the ability to naturally increase its vibration just by the increased oxygen. And the more you do that, the more you will want to do. Because just like the deer stopping to eat the grass was the most optimal decision it could do to not only raise its vibration, but to increase its survival opportunities. And that's all we're trying to do here. And I can promise you, I have so much more coming about increasing our vibration and what vibration frequency has to do with the energy in our body. I can't wait to tell you about it, but I can promise you this. This is the most important step you'll ever make. Trying to create these small practices as habits that you do throughout the day to break this pattern of chronic stress is the most valuable thing you can do. And the more you learn about the energy that's going through your body and the frequency and vibration that it holds is setting you up for the greatest success you could ever imagine. But not only that, it's the greatest feeling you could ever imagine. When you start to notice and experience higher frequencies coursing through your body, you will understand what they're talking about. What it's like to live with a semblance of peace. What it's like to understand and perceive things in all the best light. To see happiness. To be relieved of stress. To know, most of all, you're honing your instincts so that they work for you. Right now, we've shut them out for so long, we can't even be guided by them anymore. And I can promise you that when you're in your highest frequency, it's when your instincts are the sharpest. So all of this works together to bring you the most peace and light and happiness you could imagine. So start practicing today. Start making your list. And remember, I know the list seems silly at the time, but you really want to make it because for the first little while, you even forget what makes you happy. As sad as that is to say, it's the truth. We don't even know what makes us happy. Sometimes it's so hard to even make the list. But strive for 10 things that kind of take you out of your head for a little while. And think of the things that you love, things that make you happy, things that make you grateful. Those are the things that need to be on your list. Make them as simple as they can be. And then keep that list with you at all times until they become something you do as instinct. Because that's what we're working on. We're getting our instincts back working for us so that we can get feeling as good as we can feel. And I would love for any feedback or comments. If you can share or like these videos, the more shares and likes I get, the more that I can do. So please pass it on to friends by email or text or sharing the video on social media. All of that helps. And I have so much more that I have coming to you, so I can't wait to share it. Good luck. Be well and live well. Talk soon.